welcome to another week of Behind the Lens. I'm Debbie Elias, creator and host of Behind the Lens, film critic, known U.S. and abroad. You can find my movie reviews and interviews in print and online 24/7, including behindthelensonline.net. But every Monday, I am right here on Adrenaline Radio with Behind the Lens, where we go behind the lens and below the line. And we are now in our fourth year and have had some thrilling guests so far. Last week, for those of you that missed it, Lou Diamond Phillips was live with us. And if you want to catch up and hear what Lou had to say, which was one of my favorite interviews over the past 4 years, you can find the show on Stitcher, on iTunes, on behindthelensonline.net, or on indiepopcorn.fm. Once we go after live, we become a podcast, so you can always find us. And today is another fun-filled show. I am very excited to have Mario Van Peeples with us today. Mario is going to talk about his latest show, Superstition, which just ended its season 1 run on the SyFy network. You, of course, can stream all 12 episodes on syfy.com/superstition/episodes. I can't recommend this series highly enough. It's fascinating. It deals with the supernatural. It deals with the occult. It has time travel. It has history. It is one of the most polished shows on the air. And we're going to talk to Mario and keep our fingers crossed that we hear about a season 2 pickup shortly. So, and for all you international listeners, Netflix just picked up Superstition for international release. So all of you, if you can't stream it, wait. Netflix is going to bring it to you. We also have joining us today director Lisa France. Can't wait to talk to Lisa about her her documentary, Roll With Me. Roll With Me is beyond interesting in its concept and in its execution. Lisa is a former pro basketball player. She transitioned from basketball into stunts, where she was a successful stunt woman and now turned filmmaker. She's done narrative features before, but this is her first documentary. And this is the story of Gabriel Cordell, paraplegic, who makes a 3,100-mile trek across the United States in his wheelchair. And it is not one of the fancy-dancy wheelchairs that so many of you are probably thinking of. This is a regular, hand crank the wheels, plain old everyday wheelchair. And this is one journey. I know a little bit about it, and filmmakers out there are going to enjoy the things I'm going to ask Lisa about, because she ended up with 4,000 hours of film that she had to edit. So that's going to be interesting to see how you cull down 4,000 hours of footage into a workable 90 minutes or so of a documentary. So Lisa's joining us at the half-hour mark. Mario's going to join us at the quarter-hour mark. But before then, big doings this week. Academy Award nominations last week. Of course, as expected, Coco nominated for Best Animated Feature. The Shape of Water, which our regular listeners know I am a huge, huge, huge fan of, admirer of, and that is my pick of all the nominees in so many categories this year. You've heard a lot of my exclusive interviews here on the show. Others are on behindthelensonline.net. Today we may get to a second portion of production designer Paul Austerberry talking about The Shape of Water. Paul picked up an Oscar nomination last week. Some amazing, amazing nominations this year. Including Alexander Desplat. You heard his interview here. Carter Burwell picked up a nomination also for 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. You heard Carter's interview here. So it's going to be a fun next couple of weeks as Academy voters are casting their ballots. And Spirit Award voters as well. We have some overlap with Lady Bird, with Greta Gerwig. And, of course, one of my favorites, Rachel Morrison, the very first female cinematographer to pick up an Oscar nomination. This is beyond exciting. I had the great privilege of knowing for quite a while, the very first female cinematographer who was admitted to the American Society of Cinematographers, Brienne Murphy. Brienne also won an Academy Award, Science and Technical Award. But to see how the industry has come and what Rachel has now done to garner an Oscar nomination for her work on Mudbound, I am beyond excited. And it looks like I'm going to be talking to her again tomorrow in another exclusive interview, which we'll bring you either online in print or here on the air. But there's another film we're going to talk about first before Mario calls, and that is Please Stand By. An amazing film. Just opened on Friday, limited release. It will be expanding. Film that is, let us get our proper notes, written by Michael Jalamko, and it is directed by the wonderful Ben Lewin. Ben, many of you may know, wrote and directed The Sessions a few years ago, starring John Hawkes, Helen Hunt. Ben directed Helen Hunt to an Oscar for her performance in The Sessions. He now directs Dakota Fanning, who plays an autistic young woman named Wendy. And she ends up on a road trip. She is Star Trek obsessed. And her heart's desire, she is set on entering a contest, a screenwriting contest for a Star Trek movie that must be submitted to Paramount Studios 2 days after we start our film, which starts on Valentine's Day. And it involves Wendy heading out on her own after living under the care of a group home for autistic and the disabled. She is so determined and intent on entering her screenplay in this competition that when all else fails, she sneaks out and ventures out on her own with her dog Pete, mind you, and goes on an amazing road trip that expands her world and ours as we watch it. I had a chance to, over the weekend, I actually moderated a Q&A with Ben, and I was so privileged to do it and so thrilled. He is one of the biggest supporters of the disability community, diversity. He is on various committees through the Writers Guild, and he was very intent on authenticity with Please Stand By. So the first thing, of course, I got him to talk about was what attracted this script to him.
Autism is generally expressed through male characters. Most people on the spectrum are male. And I think that, one of the things that really interested me was that the writer felt that it received that women with autism were more in need of emotional connection than men somehow, that they didn't live so easily in the world of abstractions. Anyway, just it intrigued me, the idea of having a female character play a role that is usually played by guys.
And of course, the other interesting aspect of having the female character is having the female character who is so obsessed with Star Trek, because we typically associate fandom for the Star Wars and the Star Treks with males.
Yes, that's right. But as soon as I got this script, I called a friend in Australia who has a daughter with autism of a similar age, and as soon as I mentioned Star Trek, oh yes, it's obvious. I mean, the Trekkie connection with the autism community is quite profound, and after all, Spock is the first autistic hero, you might say.
And for those of you that see the film, Star Trek does play a very big part in the construct of the script for Please Stand By, including the great use of Klingon. And yes, I have it on great authority from Ben that they tapped the world's preeminent individual with the knowledge of the Klingon language. So all the Klingon in the film actually is authentic, as are many of the locations which they shot at, including Vasquez Rocks, which for all the Trek fans out there, you may remember when Captain Kirk was battling the Gorn in an early episode, they actually shot that at Vasquez Rocks. Ben went back there to shoot part of Please Stand By and a very seminal part of the film to keep that the Trek experience authentic as well as the autistic experience. But part and parcel to this film is the sensitivity and the uplifting nature of the film, and a lot of that comes from the visuals. So, of course, I had to ask Ben about working with his longtime cinematographer, Jeff Simpson.
I'm curious, Ben, you worked with Jeffrey Simpson on the cinematography, and something that you do so often and you did this also with the sessions, so often when we are dealing with people who have some sort of disability or illness, directors will take a darker tone with the film, more or less mirroring what they perceive to be the darkness of having this disease or this disability. You go the opposite direction, and this is the second time you've done this now, and you do it here, and you and Jeffrey, you create a light visual tone throughout the entire film. You buoy the film with a lightness, so we never feel, there's never pity, we never feel down, Wendy never looks downtrodden. You know, what were your considerations in designing that visual tonal bandwidth?
You know, it's not actually designed; it's instinctive, and I think you put it correctly. I simply can't see that subject matter through a dark prism. It's just not who I am or the way I view that experience. And I think that, Jeffrey and I are very old friends. We know each other well. He knows my feelings about things. These are things you don't even need to communicate. So that pretty much from day one, I mean, when Jeff and I make a film together, we actually live together. So it's almost, it really is very much like a marriage where the partners don't need to communicate in order to understand where they're at. So, that's kind of between Jeffrey and me. I wouldn't sort of need to say to him, we need to give the look of it the same kind of, lightness of touch as the performance or the story. So it comes automatically. But I mean, I think probably people who depict disability through this kind of dark view, I mean, there are some brilliant movies made, of course, but for instance, I could not make a movie like Amour, which is a kind of a, work of wrist-slashing genius, if you like. Simply because, I think I'd probably do away with myself before the film was completed. But I'm drawn to those characters who really, where their disability, if you want to call it that, is pretty much incidental. Like, a kind of icing on the cake. I mean, or really part of the whole tapestry of their personality rather than their trademark. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, but if you kind of mingle, as I do with these days, with other disabled people, I'm on the diversity committee of the Writers Guild.
Oh.
Most people who function with some kind of device or problem or issue are incredibly positive, self-deprecating, and very funny in most cases. Because I think that the disability experience is itself a wellspring of humor, and I guess if I've got anything particular to contribute or any particular insight, then that's the one. I see the absurd side of pretty much anything. Things can be as tragic as you like, but I'll see the absurd side of it.
But also with your visuals, I love the way you utilize framing and your variances with your mid shots and your close-ups, and then you go wider the further in Wendy's journey as she gets, as she's heading to Paramount Studios, the wider your frame gets, until except for very, very powerful moments where she's very intent on she and Petey charging ahead.
Yes.
Otherwise, but I love the way you slowly visually expand the frame for the audience as her world is expanding.
Yeah, I mean,
And we're going to come back to more of my exclusive interview with Ben Lewin and the visual tone and tapestry of Please Stand By. But right now, I am thrilled. I have to bring him on. I can't wait. I am thrilled to have Mario Van Peeples with us. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am so thrilled to be talking to you again.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I've got to ask, I've already did the setup at the top of the show about Superstition. Have you heard anything about a season 2 pickup yet, or is this in the fans' hands?
It's in the fans' hands, I think.
Wow.
As it should be.
Yes.
We know that voting is important, and you vote with your dollar, your voice, your ballot. That's important, right?
Well, I know you know how much I loved it when we sat down back in December to talk about this with along with Morgana, and I had to binge watch the whole thing again, and that was after I've been watching the episodes as they were airing. So.
Oh, great! So you saw it all pieced together again, which is great. And
yeah.
You saw the last one, the 112.
Oh, and it's like, okay, I need a season 2. We're not going to give away spoilers here, but I need a season 2. This is just
right.
It ended, and
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God!
I know Superstition. The finale is pretty intense. And what I liked about doing the finale, it's all the pieces woven together.
Mm-hmm.
So characters that you've seen, and you sort of find out why the Hastings have their house in La Rochelle. Because they built it on the excuse me, the Earth has meridians, just like your body has pressure points. The Earth has pressure points, and this is an opening through which infernals can come. So it's sort of like building if you're the guardian of the gates of hell, building your station or your house right there at the gate.
It's kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer being built on top of the Hellmouth.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
But
yeah, because all the mythology comes back to play.
Mm-hmm.
So you find out, what the meridian time traps are. You find out, and also the other thing is that there are bigger things that come into play. And one of the things we talked about before that I like about the show is that it works on multi-layers. So, for
mm-hmm.
example, we find out in the very early shows that the more that our species, humankind, is doing irreparable harm to the planet, the more the infernals are coming through to sort of take us out and correct the balance.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole notion of who the bad guy is when we're the ones that are destroying the planet, becomes pretty tricky and pretty.
That's
pretty complex.
This is one of the great things about Superstition, Mario, is that you have so much history in here. You've got the Knights of Templar in here. You've got the environment and ecology addressed in here. You have family values. You touch on everything. You and your writing team, that you've really put so much thought into crafting the story of the Hastings family. And, this whole, who would want to live in a funeral home and run a cemetery, but they do. And you put it all together and explain the importance of this and why and the place in the universe in the grand scheme of things. And I just love it.
Oh, thank you. What's fun about that is that if you have something that's entertaining and fun to watch, and then, on top of that, you have, what I always call nutritional value, things that make us think. And then it's great because it stays with you. It's not like something that it's just entertainment that just sort of goes away. It's that conversation that we have in that one episode about that the women have, and their varying points on abortion, when they have to bury the white supremacist Klansmen, and Garvey is sort of more on the Black Lives Matter thing, is sort of like, why are we doing this? And B, who says, no, this is what we do. We may not have agreed with his choices in life, but we will honor him in death, and we will create a space where his family can come pay their respects, and with love, and in a sort of in a good environment to do our best. We will, in essence, no matter how they go, if they go high or they go low, we will go high.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes that's a tricky path for the Hastings family to walk. Sometimes we're more successful than others. But I think ultimately it's a family that you want to spend. The Hastings are a family in Superstition that you want to spend time with. And that's something that Joel, my writing partners, talked about at length, was that, even if there are no infernals on the screen, you're going to want to get to know this family that at the core has this wonderful life-affirming point of view or zeitgeist on the world.
Mm-hmm. So, where did the idea for Superstition come from? With all the intricate moving parts here, this isn't the kind of story that you just sit at the breakfast table one day and say, hey, I think I want to write a film, write a series about a family. They run a funeral home, a cemetery, and they deal with the beyond and alchemy, and I think that's what I'll do today. So this...
No, it's not. And and as you point out, it's not. It's actually something that that's very rich in its folklore. You think about, I say this, you take the slaves, newly freed slaves, and Native Americans, and British and Irish and Jews and Asians, and you mix this all together in this melting pot called America, and you do get sparks. You do get conflict, but you also get great art. You get great music, great folklore, and of course great superstition. And a lot of those superstitions are woven into the old countries that all these different Americans are from.
Mm-hmm.
Their motherlands, if you will. And so the idea, the genesis of it, was with Justin and Chris, who were at SyFy Network. They identified that there were not a lot of multiculti families in this space, or people of color in this space, the horror sort of thriller space.
Mm-hmm.
And they they came to me and Barry, and then we worked it around, and we met Joel and brought him into the mix, and Joel brought Larry into the mix from 6 Feet Under, which seemed like a good fit. And so together we sort of all layered it up, and we started to research the mythology and the Templars and the Moors. That was important too, that you had the mix of the Moors. I had just done Roots, and I was very interested in West African and North African and history and mythology. And so we sort of pulled it all together, and it sort of came in layers. And then part of what I wanted to do was cast actors who weren't just about playing the role, but in actuality were the role.
Mm-hmm.
Robin is a really smart, fun, accomplished mother who's a terrific actor. Brad had been in the military, been in the Marines, who plays my son, Calvin. Demetria is not only a great actress, she's a dancer and a singer as well. But beyond that, they're good people. It sounds like people always say this, but we had no jerks on the set. We had people who were happy to be there. They were like, man, we don't get to do this often. We don't get to show a family like this often. My own daughter, Morgana, who really fought in audition to play Garvey and brought her A game to that, and then Demetria, Tatiana, who plays
Tilly, the coroner.
Tilly.
Yeah,
Tilly. And who really is, developed this real quirky, sort of fun take on Tilly. So they brought a lot of, they knew they were in the mix with an actor, director, and writers who would do their best to capture the beauty of what they brought. And that's why I think it's also so rich, is that the actors brought their game, and so if Brad could do could see something and do a great kick, I would go, oh, let's do that. Let's use it. If Robin can speak French and I can speak French and the Hastings are multilingual, and of course Isaac's been around for many years. He's learned a lot of languages, so let's use that. Let's use Jasmine Guy's, great sort of cinematic history and television history on screen, and even her backstory with me. Let's use that. And so it was always growing. It was always a living, moving document. The script. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the fun. So when we created an Infernal, the initial thing when you create an Infernal is you think of what you've seen in Hollywood shown you before, which is this sort of pale Infernal with pointy ears that goes, "My precious," and then we talked about it when it was Justin's idea on SyFy. I said, "Why don't you go, a little more gangster with him?" And I said, "Oh yeah, let's go more New Jack City with the Infernals." Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, and then let that Infernal quote Curtis Mayfield's great song where he says, "If there's a hell below, we're all going to go." Only Inferno's got his own spin on it, which is, "If there's a hell below, you're all going to go." And Isaac's sort of, hammering him about, selling drugs and technically selling poison to kids. And he says, "Man, that's some hypocritical stuff right there, man. You human beings are poisoning the whole planet with your pollution and greed."
Yeah.
Then he says, "You guys want to dance with the devil and kill in the name of God, but God don't love you no more. That's why he's sending all this crazy weather to get rid of your ass."
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it is so intricately...
You really hear some stuff on this show that you don't hear at other shows.
You don't. But then you go beyond that, and you as a director or producer, and then with your cinematographer, the production values, Mario, are off the charts. This is so polished. The cinematography is so rich, so gorgeous. It really, really starts taking off in episode 3, I have to tell everybody. It's beautiful in episodes 1 and 2, but episode 3, you really, when the dredge gets introduced and the cinematography just explodes. But the production values are insane. Very, very cinematic. Not something you expect to see on a series.
Right. Oh, thank you. Well, that AJ comes with me from the film world. We just finished recently, before the show, we filmed a movie called Armed. Mm-hmm. And, there's that old saying, there's nothing that stops a bad guy with a gun like a good guy with a gun. And I play a good guy with multiple guns at a very interesting time to in our country where we're having some real questions about how we handle firearms, Second Amendment. So he came to me from that. We had done Armed together, and we'd done a couple other movies together, and I was like my big coup was to get him to do this with us. And so he came in. And then, and part of that also is then our set design, where there's always that thing you think about with old houses, like if these walls could talk. Well, Amy, our set designer, literally created the Hastings house out of reclaimed and reused pieces of old houses from all across America. And so that was really wild to have that, so that you really feel that the house has a great history itself.
And then the set dressing itself within the Hastings house. Every picture on the wall, everything sitting on every little tchotchke sitting on a shelf, every book. The alchemy room is amazing. It's just, there is no detail too small in this production.
Thank you. Well, did you see the episode where we go into sort of Calvin's psyche, courtesy of the dredge, and B is painting going over some of Arlo's artwork, and all that art. We got this artwork from Marley, my son Marley, who's got this great sort of haunted sense of art. I thought, how am I going to use this kid's art? It's so wild. And so we built that in. And part of this backstory was that B's an artist, and Arlo, who was killed early on, is also an artist and then she makes this very cutting remark about Calvin, which is that that he's an artist too, except for killing is his canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a really, all these layers are thought out, and then the whole mythology with the Ring of Solomon and how we get that. So I hope we get to tell more stories, because there is a lot of rich, great folklore and superstition in this country, and we had a lot of fun playing with it, man.
Well, I mean, but there is you have no stone unturned in here. But I've got to ask you, because you direct 8 episodes, and you've been involved from the ground up. How well does Mario the actor take direction from Mario the director? I mean, this is important.
Okay, so that's a good question. So I've been doing this. I sort of grew up doing it. I sort of grew up seeing my dad. He did Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song in 1971. So that became the top grossing independent hit of that year, outgrossing Love Story, et cetera, and it had a culty crew and a multi-culty cast. And my dad was director, writer, producer, actor. And in my family, when you grow up in a family like that, you get used to doing everything. You get used to carrying cables, you get used to editing, you get used to, it's all a part of the zen of family filmmaking. So there's no area that you go, oh, well, I can't do that, or I would never do that, or, so it all becomes a part of what we do. It's all holistic, it's all connected. Later on, you realize, oh, these are separate jobs, and, one union covers that, and you can't touch this because some other guy does that, and that makes sense. Another gal does this. So that then that becomes a whole separate thing. But I find that my best acting is when I am reacting. So I will, if like you're in this conversation right now, someone might say, how are you steering this conversation, but you're also having this conversation? It's actually in some ways easier, because you know what question you want to ask. I don't know what question you're going to ask, and so you get this immediacy. And sometimes as an actor, I'll be asked a question by something that another actor did, or prompted by something someone else did. And I'm not down the street or down the block watching from a monitor. I'm right there in the mix. And I find that Mario, the actor, is right there with them, and that the director is setting up an environment for the actors on Superstition to do their best work, and then we just come in and do it. So it's even in like when I did Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood, he's actor director, and he found a way to sort of do that. And then there are other times, the other thing is that I've had the great fortune of being directed by really good directors.
You have.
Most actors don't get to do that, where they get to be directed by Francis Ford Coppola or Clint Eastwood or Michael Mann or Ava DuVernay or many great directors. And then from that you learn, and some directors that maybe weren't so good, so you learn, you go, oh wow, hey, I can mess it up as good as this guy can or gal can or whatever. And that's what Clint Eastwood said encouraged him. He said, well, hell, if this joker can do it, so it's like seeing Showgirls. You see Showgirls, you go, wait a minute, they got that released? Okay, I can make a movie.
No, that's when you go, oh my God, they got financing for that.
Right.
That's our first hurdle.
It doesn't mean my sense of, I try to tell this to my kids, my sense of self is not just about, it's not thinking I'm better than anybody else. It's just thinking maybe I'm not a whole lot worse. And therefore, I can work on being better,
Mario, don't ever sell yourself short. You are a very intuitive director, but not only that, nothing escapes your eye and your level of attention to detail. And, the devil is always in the details.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what really sets your direction apart from others. And I see that in the episodes that you directed and other projects that you've done. And I just think, to see with Superstition, have all of your talents come together here. It's a testament to your skill as a director, as a writer, as an actor, as a producer, knowing to surround yourself with the right people on top of it. And I sincerely hope that SyFy picks up Superstition for season 2 because it is a phenomenal series.
I really appreciate your saying that. And one thing that means a lot is that you come in knowing it and really having looked at it. You know, one of the things I was impressed when we talked before is that the layers you see. You know, you really, you know, the little clues and the little things would happen. Like even B's character that is never comfortable with infernals winds up at the end having to think differently about you know what infernals can do. You know, and evolution, like that one when Isaac tells Calvin, his son, and Calvin says, "Dad," at the end, and Calvin knows he's really facing some big dilemmas coming up, and he says, "Dad, I love you," and Isaac says, "Man," he says, "you know, my father, your grandfather, always said there are 3 kinds of people. They're yesterday people, you know, people that think, oh, well, we had so much fun yesterday, we were healthy and beautiful yesterday. If only we're here last week or yesterday, it would have been awesome. And they're tomorrow people that think, man, I can't wait to get this job tomorrow, graduate tomorrow, lose weight tomorrow, whatever it is, tomorrow people. And there are very few today people that go, right now, this moment is the gift, and that's why they call it the present. And that's something my dad and I had talked about, and I just brought it home, and with Joel and we brought it into something that Isaac would say. So it actually, in a lot of ways, is a lot of philosophy and other people's points of view as well, but there's a lot of us in it. Down to what Robin does with her character, when there were times when, you know, we do things a certain way, or when you know, what Garvey does, all those little details in Superstition pay off, you know.
Well, unfortunately, my friend, I have to let you go for for our next guest, a director who did her first documentary. But I can't thank you enough. Hopefully, next time we talk, it's going to be to talk about season 2.
All righty. Wish us luck.
But in the meantime, everybody, syfy.com/superstitions/episodes, and you can see all 12. And trust me, you're going to binge watch them.
All righty.
Oh, Mario, thank you so much, my friend, and I will
Big
talk
hug,
to you
my dear.
soon.
Big hug.
Same to you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And that was Mario Van Peeples. See it, people, because whether this series gets picked up again, it is in the fans' hands. And now, welcome to the wonderful Lisa France. Hello, Lisa. Welcome to Behind the Lens.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you. Are you having trouble or?
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just I want to warn you that I'm in the street.
Oh. No, we've got you. If Pam can play with little numbers, and if she's making a funny face in the engineering booth, I'll let you know.
Okay.
But I've got to say,
yeah, I'm prepping another movie right now, and I'm on set and I'm standing outside. So I apologize if it's noisy.
Oh, that's okay. Well, congratulations on Roll With Me. Talk about an endeavor. This is just amazing that you actually pulled this off. Number one, shooting, but number two, you went through 4,000 hours of footage to cull it down to a workable documentary.
It was a little crazy. That took the most amount of time, to be honest.
Oh, I can imagine.
That was a very, very long process. And you know, we had, like many filmmakers, we had no budget, so it was just me. And you know, I think once I got through the footage, I knew. And I called Gabriel Cordell, who did the push across America. I called him and I said, you know, hey, I just. Well, you know, we have a story I need now as an editor.
Where did this idea come from to actually make this documentary? Because you've also got, your subject is Gabriel Cordell. Gabe was not a trained athlete. You being a former basketball player and stunt woman, you know about physical training and being ready to embark on something like pushing your wheelchair across the United States. So, I'm curious, how did
I did.
so how did this come to you, and what did you think when it's like, did you like slap yourself or see a psychiatrist first and say, am I really going to do this?
That is exactly what I did. I told a lot of my friends and family. I said, "Hey, that's this guy. He's a nut. He's gonna try and push his wheelchair across America. He's like a career smoker, drug addict, 40-something years old, arthritis, and I'm sure he'll make it like 50 feet." I didn't know what to expect at all. But when I met him, there was just something about him that told me this dude, he could make it. I don't know why I thought that, because there's just absolutely zero evidence that would lend us that information. But I just thought he could make it. At first, it was very tough for me because I am a former professional athlete, and I am used to training schedules and that sort of stuff. That just wasn't going to happen here. That schedule wasn't happening. This schedule was going to be whenever he could up and go, that's when we would get up and roll. And I told my family that I wasn't going to do it. I said, it's too crazy. I don't want to do it. And they all said, you have to do it.
Well,
and I said, why?
And their reason?
At the end of the day, I talked about this in the cell a little bit. I am very attracted to pioneers. I look back on my life, and the people that have moved me in life have been, people like Sally Ride and Jesse Owens, and just people that just everyone said no, you can't, and they said yes, I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I was attracted to that, and no one had ever done this before. So I was like, you know what? Probably not going to make it too far, but let's get in there and try.
Mm-hmm.
And, we had no money, and so we just got a bunch of volunteers, got some sponsors, like West Coast Chill, and I don't know, I had the YM jumped in and helped out a lot. The, Connecta, a credit union, they just put like emblems on our stuff, like our shirts and our car, and they gave us a couple bucks. So we have to get out of town. Mm-hmm. And then it was really the kind of strangers along the way that made it possible, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I find interesting is that Gabriel didn't even have, a custom-fitted wheelchair. He didn't have.
No.
He just had a regular. It's not like he went and saw Ernie Espinosa or some of the guys who do all the custom wheelchair stuff. He just had a regular.
No.
He just had a regular old wheelchair, and that
is correct.
That blew my mind. That he would even attempt this.
It was kind of crazy. Like and of course, until you actually sit in a wheelchair, and if anybody who's listening has never sat in a wheelchair and tried to push themselves up a hill, or even more scary, going down a hill with no brakes, no extra wheel, no steering,
mm-hmm.
no, the circumference push, that's a big part of the deal, right? Yeah, so his was the entire size of the wheel, whereas a lot of these roll bars are little.
Mm-hmm.
So the little push and the whole wheel goes around.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't have any of that stuff. No parachutes, no nothing special. No motors, just a regular chair that, I would call a mobile paraplegic would get.
Mm-hmm.
That would be what they would be given after they became as mobile as possible again.
Sure. And of course I understand you're riding a bicycle, going along with him, trying to shoot.
Yeah.
How does this
It might
work?
be the first. It might be the first movie ever shot from a bicycle.
How does this work, Lisa? You're on a bicycle. You at least have either hand brakes or foot brake, unlike Gabe, who doesn't have brakes. But you're also trying to shoot something while you're trying to stay on the road and keep up with him. I can't even imagine this.
Well, again, there was no book, there was no system, there was no, we're going to go 3,100 miles up 70,000 feet of elevation and try to go as fast as possible with no rule book. There wasn't any information how to cover this or shoot this. And to be honest with you, Debbie, I really wasn't thinking about the documentary. I was really just thinking about if he was to be okay, if that makes sense. So my prime reason for riding next to him was to ensure that he had water, that he had snacks. So I would carry a lot of the snacks and food on my bicycle in my basket or in my backpack, and to make sure he was safe. Now our car was never more than 5 miles away, but even still, you just never know. Can you imagine if something happened to him and no one was there? So that was my primary function originally. And then as we started to get the hang of things, I thought, I could shoot for this stuff. So I started to keep 3 different little tiny cameras in my, I had a little basket on the front of my bike. And then I also had a shoulder bag, and I carried some stuff in there. And then I had GoPros. I used my iPhone. I mean, I could only keep small things. I couldn't carry the proper camera or anything.
Right.
So that's how we did it. And then, I gave guys in the RV, I gave them cameras. And then I had these really old, janky-ass cameras that were crap. I gave them these DVX 100s.
Oh, my God.
The camera that we had.
Oh, my God.
Took tape. They took tape.
Oh, my God. But, I'm curious. You've got all these different formats. And then you've got to sit down at the end of this with your 4,000 hours. How do you find your through line and start developing a coherent story?
Well, my editor, Jeff Buccialetto, who was sent to me from God, I swear, he's straight from heaven. He was great. He was my outline, which was pretty lame. And the scenes, I had binned all the footage that I knew would cut into a scene, and I just started with the linear version. Okay, if we start on day 1 and go all the way through, what's the best meat? So when I went through all the 4,000 hours, and I found a B-roll of game and everything. Thank God, everything was time stamped, so we did know what day things were shot. Except for the stuff on tape.
Oh, God.
We were just throwing tapes in the RV. We didn't have a DIT or anyone organizing footage. We didn't have an editor. We didn't have an assistant. We didn't have a story producer. And we shot for 120 days.
Oh, my God. Oh.
I shot 100 days on the road, and then I had 20 days of extra, before we left and stuff. Sort of after, and then just kind of cleaning up at the end. It was a lot of work.
Something that you did so often with documentaries of this nature, not riding on bicycles and trying to shoot and pushing wheelchairs, but documentaries that are going on a journey. They're interspersed and peppered with a lot of talking head interviews. You don't do that. That was one of my, actually, thank you. Thank you, because that was actually one of my goals. And I did everything I could to avoid that, because I prefer verite. I think verite is beautiful, and good thing about our film is if I had to cast these characters, you wouldn't believe that they exist, right? No.
Would you ever believe that that a guy with PTSD, a guy with Asperger's who's homeless, you've got the Palestinian drug addicts, you've got this white Aryan-looking dude who's a former cokehead, you've got the Jewish guy with daddy issues, and you got the lesbian. What could go wrong?
Nah, nothing. I mean, that's the first group you're going to gravitate towards to bring on.
Right. Exactly. It was just so crazy. I'm like, none of us knew each other. We didn't know. We weren't friends or anything. And everyone just had, everyone had a great heart. You know, Christian Link, Chris Yankee, Josh Streeter, Dirk Gibbs, me, Gabe, Chris Cowis, like all the guys, all of them, everything about them, they all had a good heart.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, all our misfitty behaviors and problems and qualms, it didn't take away the goodness in everybody. And I thought that was the most paramount thing that kept us all together. And not one drop, by the way, not a punch thrown.
Wow. And no medical emergency.
Yeah, you would think shoving.
There would have been something.
Yeah, we did have a couple. We did have a couple medical emergencies.
Okay. I was going to say.
They weren't the guys fighting.
I just can't believe you actually pulled this off. But, you know, I'm curious because this was your first documentary, correct? You've done narrative, but this was your first doc.
Yes, ma'am.
What was that logistic learning curve of a director like for you, coming off a narrative and jumping into a documentary?
I liken it to this. You know those puzzles you get? There's like a picture of the Eiffel Tower or something on it. It says 1,000 pieces. And then, you look at the picture and you put it together, right?
Right.
Well, that's like a feature. That's a standard feature. You have a screenplay, you follow the screenplay, then you take the pieces and you put it together and you just match it up to the screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
With a documentary, you get a black box or a white box or a green box, whatever box, and a question mark on. And it says 20 million pieces could be put together in 100 million different ways. Good luck.
Oh, my. Oh, my.
So documentary filmmakers are my heroes. I have learned a great deal. I've learned a lot about how to, I've learned a deep, deep appreciation for what doc filmmakers do. And I learned so much. Thank goodness I had friends along the way that have helped me to get it to the place where it is. But I think at the end of the day, if you're a storyteller, you're a storyteller, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you just find the story. Even when you shoot something that has a screenplay, you're still trying to find the best story oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like for me, the difference is finding it. When you have the script, you know what it is. When you're making a doc, you're finding it, and things keep revealing themselves. Like, did I think that bringing a kid who was no day sober off of crystal meth and coke was a good idea? Probably not. But as you know, if you saw the film, you know it ends up being a very important part of the story. It's
an exceedingly important part of the story because Gabe isn't just, he brings his nephew along, and you see this real mentorship develop between the two of them. And by the end, you really believe that his nephew, Christopher, he is going to clean up his act.
Mm-hmm.
That he's not going to, he will not revert back to being an addict and being a gangbanger. That he is now on a path. And it's exciting to see that unfold. It's not like a Talking Heads movie where you have people, you see them sitting in self-help groups or recovery groups, but here you actually see the process on a daily basis. And it was really interesting to watch that because Gabriel himself was not too long before that in a very similar place.
Exactly. No, it's I feel like the film is a lot about mentorship. It's about, the fellowship among brothers. It's about family. It's about this country and who we are when we need to be. And, it's very inspiring and touching. And I think we need a film like our film. I think Roll With Me is the type of film that people need to watch right now. We're kind of a little bit divided. We're kind of getting a little clunky at the, I just think that, I made this film to help people. That's why I made it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important to me that people feel inspired. They feel that regardless of whether they just had a rough day and can't don't feel like going to work, that maybe this film will be like, you know what, my life's all right. I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can get out. I can make it happen. And if you're going for something big and you've been afraid to try it, you know, maybe the film will push you over to do it. We've had people come right up to us and say that the film has changed their lives and that it's important and children should watch it, and, you know, kids dealing with abuse and the families dealing with abuse and people who have family members who are differently abled should see it. Like, and we're so humbled, you know. It's very humbling to have this many people have this reaction to it.
And you've been on the festival circuit with this for a while, and you're getting standing room only, standing ovations at all of your screenings.
Yeah, it's been, again, very humbling. We've won audience awards. You know, it's just been, you know, you never know what you're going to get, right? You just toss it out there and do the best you can. And so far, like I said, we feel very blessed and humbled by what we've been able to attain so far. And, you know, we're now just looking for our distribution. We have a lot of conversation. CAA is repping our film.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, for people who are, it's great. For people who are listening that want to know more about Roll With Me, they can just go to rollwithmethemovie.com and at Roll With Me USA on Facebook. And, you know, I update all that stuff myself. And, you know, we're scooching along here. We're a baby film that you know, is a little gritty, a little down and dirty, but has a giant epic message.
You know, and for filmmakers out there, I mean, this is really guerrilla filmmaking at its finest. It truly is.
Yeah.
It's, you know, this is guerrilla. This is what guerrilla filmmaking is all about, is making a film like Roll With Me.
Yeah, it's very, very guerrilla. It's the biggest stunt I've ever done.
So now I gotta ask you, Lisa, before we run out of time on the show today, I've got to ask you, what did you learn about yourself, take away as a director, that you will now take forward into your future projects, into the one you're shooting now, into the ones you'll do in the future?
You know, I'm doing this movie for Cartel Productions right now. Great little company, does lots of different stuff. And I'm doing a little teeny baby, low budget thriller for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm going to shoot this thing in 12 days. And at the end of the day, I want to give them the best product I can within these little tiny days that I have. And I even told the producer today, I said, listen, I just made a movie with a camera and me and a guy. Like, all this other stuff is bonus. So I just feel grateful for every light that I'm going to have, for every additional personnel I have. I think we have to remember, to tell a story these days, all we need is an iPhone and a laptop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think storytellers should keep that in mind when they get all freaked out and flustered about, you know, you need your subject, whatever that is, or whoever they are, if they're actors or they're real life, you know, people we're following around. And, you know, you need them, and you need your camera, and you need, you know, your computer to edit on. I mean, that's where we are now.
But
that's extraordinary. What a gift.
It really is. And, you know, as you said, you know, so many filmmakers are first-time directors who think they need so much. They need stuff. You don't need stuff. You really don't need the stuff.
Not really.
The stuff that you need is the inherent ability to tell a story and the desire to do it.
Yeah, well, that's the key right there. Debbie, you just nailed it right on the head, because, you know, I got to work with some really great storytellers like Tom Beers, who's our executive producer. He did Deadliest Catch and Ice Road Truckers. You know, Georgia Fox, who's been an actress, but she's made several documentaries herself, so she understands story. Sharon Swart, my producer, she's been telling stories for her whole life. I've got my editor. Gabe's a great storyteller. He also can write. I mean, we have Jerry Cattell, who's an incredible storyteller. I have all these great storytellers on my team, and it's just really up to you to take all the advice and information that you get from everybody and say, you know what, this works.
Yeah.
This works. At the end of the day, though, it's you. If you're the director, you need to choose and say, you know what, the buck stops here. These are all great ideas, and these are the ones that are resonating the most.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have definitely...
And we did test screenings, too, so...
Well, you took all the right ideas to put this together. Roll with it. I'm amazed. I am utterly amazed about the process that you went through to make this, and then seeing the finished product. It is a film. It is a very empowering film. It's a powerful film, and it's one that I hope a smart distributor is going to pick up on very soon so that more people can see the film.
Thank you. Thank you. And just have people go to rollwithmethemovie.com if they want to know more.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much. I hope you'll come back on the show again.
Maybe once we finally get our distribution, we'll come back on and talk about how it's going.
I was just going to say that when we get a distribution deal.
Awesome. Thank you, Debbie.
Lisa, thank you. And I look forward to talking to you again and your little baby thriller that you're doing now.
Yeah, fun.
Thanks so much, Lisa.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. And that was Lisa France. Roll with me. If it's still in the festival circuit, if it's near you, see it. Rollwithmethemovie.com. You can find out where it's playing and keep up on when it gets to a distribution deal near you. That is all the time we have today. Again, huge thank you to Mario Van Peeples for joining us, for Lisa France, another very incredible couple of talents with us. Next week, Jay Silverman is going to be with us, and Ethan Warren talking about their films. And mark your calendars, because Mark Pellington is with us on February 19th. I'm very, very excited that Mark is locked in and he's going to be doing the show. A dear friend and an incredible director. So that's all the time we have. Until next week, I'm Debbie Elias. This is Behind the Lens.